I've never worked in procurement. I'm actually based in the Climate Change and Environment team at the City Council, but I work very closely with procurement, and I'll come on to talk about some of the projects I'm working on with my procurement colleagues. I've worked in the local authority now for 9 years, and I came from academia. I was a human geographer before that, before I went to work for Birmingham City Council. Birmingham City Council is the largest UK local authority. We have a budget, an annual budget of 3.5 billion and falling, and an annual procurement budget of just under 1 billion. So we've got a big purchasing power as a local authority, an enormous amount of activity in our procurement team. So we've started to look at public procurement of innovation, how we can use our public procurement activity to try and drive innovation in our local economy and to encourage innovation amongst our SMEs. Why do it? Well, I've got some figures up on there. This is Europe-wide. In 2009, the total public expenditure on works, goods and services was about 19.4% of the GDP of the 27 EU countries. And the EU are recommending that roughly 3% of that should be spent on innovation and R&D. But current figures point to the fact that that's probably less than 1% currently, whereas the US are doing much better in this and are almost at 3%. We are struggling to get anywhere near that. So we've looked at that. We're closely engaged in Europe, and we work very closely with our MEP, who's been very encouraging for us, or in us, to take this forward. So we've been looking at how we might do this more effectively, and I'm going to talk about some of the projects we're working on, and then talk about some of the continuing barriers we have to trying to work on this more effectively. So in terms of our background and where this came from, Birmingham City Council is involved in a partnership called Birmingham Science City, and I manage the Science City project at the City Council. We have a director that sits outside the City Council. But one of the things when Birmingham Science City was established in 2005 was to try and explore the potential that public procurement might have in terms of stimulating innovation, particularly in our small and medium-sized enterprises. So one of the initial things we did to this was, in this area, was respond to a House of Lords Select Committee, Science and Technology Select Committee call for evidence on using public procurement to stimulate innovation. That report's been published and is accessible. We were one of the only local authorities that actually responded to that. We responded through Birmingham Science City, but the majority of people that responded, or organisations that responded, were national level. And we began linking much more into strategic thinking, both in the UK and also in Europe. So I mentioned the relationship we've had with our MEP. So we've been able, through him, to have input into things that are happening in terms of procurement at a European level, but also at the UK level. It's been very much at a strategic level until now, and we're only just developing some more projects in this area, one of which is potentially with the Technology Strategy Board, and we've had links with their procurement team, particularly around the SBRI programme, the Small Business Research Initiative programme. We're also accessing and developing European funding opportunities, and our focus to date has been around the sustainability and low carbon agenda. And I guess this is where I come to the fact that I'm standing here and not as a procurer talking to you, in that it's frequently, particularly when it comes to buying innovation, people that don't work in procurement that find a need or an unmet, or a solution that they need, or an unmet need that perhaps people in the procurement team aren't aware of. And in order to progress or to meet some of our targets, we need to buy innovation. As a city, we have a carbon reduction target of 60% by 2027. We're not going to meet that target if we carry on buying what we've always bought. We need to look at buying different things and different solutions maybe around retrofit, maybe around mobility, certainly around energy provision in order to help us move towards meeting that target. And so that's why from the sustainability team we've linked up with our procurers in order to explore this area and some of the things we might do. Some of the projects we're involved in, and I'll talk about these briefly, these will all have websites eventually. Some of them are just establishing as projects, but there'll be more information about all of these. Icps, which is an organisation internationally, but we're working with the European branch, is local governments working towards sustainability. And they're developing a public procurement of innovation platform. That's going to be a platform that's going to be open to procurers, non-procurement experts, to explore ways in which they may develop public procurement of innovation initiatives. So that's in the process of being developed and will be launched fairly soon, I believe. I'm sitting on the advisory board with some other local authorities and national organisations across Europe. And we're also sitting on there with the European Commission. The European Commission is going to have a lot of funding available, particularly through Horizon 2020, for working in areas of public procurement of innovation. I think it's going to be something like 80 million euros a year available in funding to incentivise and encourage procurers to engage in this activity more widely. So as I said, it will be an opportunity to develop practical tools for public procurers. I mentioned our links with the Technology Strategy Board. We're working with the Technology Strategy Board potentially to run an SBRI linked to the retrofit agenda. The TSB have been effective in engaging national level organisations, particularly the Ministry of Defence and the Department of Health, to do SBRI processes, which is the purchase of R&D, providing a solution for an unmet need. But local authorities haven't tended to pick up on this agenda, I guess because of the risk element. It's quite risky. You don't know if the R&D you're going to buy is going to meet your needs or will provide the solution. So in an era of shrinking budgets, undertaking risky activity is something that perhaps public procurers understandably don't want to get involved in. So some co-funding from the Technology Strategy Board will help us alleviate some of that risk. And the SBRI process runs in a similar way to that in the US and also in the Netherlands. We're also working on procurement compacts. This is a BIS-led initiative, and again, this is available online. We're a signatory of the Prince of Wales Corporate Leaders Group on their Down to Zero procurement compacts. Procurement compacts essentially work by getting organisations together, be they public, private, sector organisations, to articulate their demands in a specific area. So these are focusing on transport, biogas and catering. I'm co-chairing the Transport Compact with Lex Auto Lease, and we're effectively coming together with BT and the NHS, other big fleet owners, to say, well, when the market can meet this need and this need and this need and can provide us vehicles at this price, then we'll be interested in buying. So it's the power really of different organisations coming together and saying, this is what we want, and when you can provide it, then we'll buy it. That has been taken up to a European level with a project called Transform we're involved in, where effectively we're going to be doing that at a European scale, and this is funded through FP7 with partners across Europe, but with a focus on transport. So this project has only just started, and the cities involved are Birmingham, Rotterdam and Barcelona. So we're going to be working with those cities on transport compacts, and also bringing in private sector partners. So one of our partners at the City Council, we've got a PFI with them, is Amy. So they're interested in joining us to find out how they can get involved in this compact method of procurement. The Climate Kick, I don't know if many of you know about the Knowledge Innovation Community. It's another European funded initiative. There's 3 currently running, one on energy, one on ICT and one on climate, so carbon reduction initiatives. We're actually leading a project called Pioneer Cities. So we're working with 5 other cities, including Frankfurt, Wrocław, Castellón in Spain, Budapest. So there's a group of 6 of us. And as well as looking at various carbon reduction initiatives we're all engaged in our own cities, we're also involved in something called the Climate Market Accelerator, which is essentially looking at how cities and how procurers can accelerate the market in buying goods related to meeting the challenges from climate change. So at one end you've got the universities and the big businesses involved in the climate kick, and then at the other end you've got this group of cities articulating their demand for products and solutions. Part of that is going to be a public procurement of innovation network, which is going to be established, which will work across Europe, and that's going to be hosted at Birmingham City Council, which will help us try and understand how we can collaborate more effectively with partners across Europe. And then our final project, which I'll talk about quickly, is SPEAR, the Smart Procurement European Alliance. This is a competitiveness and innovation programme funded project which is going to be looking at retrofit of municipal buildings. It's being led by Barcelona City Council, and Birmingham's a partner along with Eindhoven City Council as well. The aim of this is to engage with SMEs early in the process to try and get some of our more creative and innovative SMEs involved that probably find it hard, as we've heard this morning, to knock on the door, earlier on, to knock on the door of a big local authority and say, I've got this great product, I've got this great innovation, how can I work with you? Well, the methodologies we're going to be developing in this project will hopefully facilitate that and will help us engage more effectively with the SMEs and try and find ways in which they feel they can more effectively engage with us. So that will be quite an interesting project. That's only launched in September last year, so again, we haven't got any results yet, but we'll have a website and there'll be information coming out. Okay, so it all looks hunky-dory, but we know that's not the case. It's taken a long, hard slog to get to this point, 4 years of working and engaging and trying to convince politicians and senior members of staff at the City Council that this is a way forward. And there's been 2 of us at the City Council working on this, myself and a colleague in procurement strategy, and we've also been working with the University of Birmingham, and we share a PhD student with them who is looking specifically at how public procurers can use public procurement to stimulate innovation. So some of the challenges that we've still got, we work in silos, which are obviously or often very difficult to move between. Even when you're in the same building as people, sometimes the people in the climate change team find it hard to talk to people that are working in transport and so on. And national government's organised into silos as well, so that's difficult. A local authority procurement contract may stimulate innovation outside the local area or the local area of responsibility. So for a city council, we may say, okay, we've got this unmet need and we want to buy some innovation, and that may yield economic benefits in neighbouring local authorities, which can be challenging when you're trying to convince politicians that this is a good way forward. And that obviously there will be benefits to our local economy, and by issuing these kinds of challenges or competitions, or however you want to run these processes, it will inevitably attract creative and innovative SMEs into your local authority area. There may be benefits outside. Local authorities are good at finding workarounds. So, okay, we can't buy innovation, so let's see if we can kind of make do amend and fix a current solution rather than buy something that's untested or might be risky. I've mentioned this risk averse, or the fact that procurers can be risk averse, so this first rider principle can be challenging, and that we need to incentivise the procurement of innovation. It's not always something that people will just go and do, and we've been working with central government. I'll come on to a slide right at the end just to say some of the things that we have been doing with central government to work out how we might do this more systematically. I've only got 2 more slides. What do we need to do? We need to nominate a senior champion. So at a local authority level, somebody needs to say, yes, this is what we should be doing. Yes, it's risky. Okay, some things will work and some things won't, but that's okay. The things that won't work, it's okay if some things fail. No one's going to lose their job. So we need a senior champion. We need a funding stream to remove some of the risk. We need a network and staff resources, and we're slowly developing this now at the City Council. We want to establish a pre-commercial procurement demonstrator as well. So we've started to work on public procurement of innovation. We want to start looking as well at public procurement of R&D. And the Technology Strategy Board is one way that we might do that. European funding is another way. And we want to continue to access and develop our future funding sources. So one of the things we've done recently at Birmingham City Council is through something called the Greater Birmingham Project, which has been run at the level of the Greater Birmingham and Solihull Local Enterprise Partnership, the LEP. Lord Heseltine produced a report not that long ago called No Stone Unturned, and he had 3 recommendations in there around public procurement, amongst another 86 recommendations on a whole raft of other things. And he wanted to test out his recommendations in one location, and he picked Birmingham. So we've been working with Lord Heseltine on the response to No Stone Unturned, the outcome of which may be or will be a single pot of funding for LEPs all across the country eventually to access from April 2015, I believe it will be. We made a number of recommendations around procurement, some of which have been picked up, particularly that we will work to develop a single procurement strategy as it relates to innovation across our local enterprise partnership. And that we will share capacity and expertise to try and drive this forward. We're luckily in Birmingham, we've got a 40-strong centralised procurement team, but some of the other authorities in our local enterprise partnership don't have a permanent procurement function. So it's a case of us working with those authorities to develop economies of scale around that. So the response to this, or our response to the Heseltine report, is available on the Greater Birmingham and Solihull Local Enterprise Partnership website. So that's just the front cover. And that's all I wanted to say. So thank you very much.